In Acts chapter 27, we have one of the great adventures of the Apostle Paul. As a prisoner of Rome, he is being transported via ship. And he warned them that he didn't think it was a good time for them to sail in the direction that they were going. But they didn't listen to him. After all, he was just a prisoner. Well, about halfway to their destination, sure enough, a great storm comes up and they're all fearing for their lives, except for Paul. Now, he didn't say, "I told you so." He wasn't that kind of a guy, but here is what he said, and I'll read it in a moment. But first of all, I just want to say welcome once again to another Heart to Heart Talk. With me, I'm John Kuert, the pastor at Alpha Assembly in Clarion, Pennsylvania. Thanks for joining me, and if you've ever had problems, or sometimes we refer to those things as storms in our lives, this is a great story about the Apostle Paul, and I hope that you'll not only enjoy it, but that it will really speak to you and will be a blessing to you today. Let me read that passage here. It says, at that point, after they have this storm that they run into, here's what the apostle says to them: "Men, you should have taken my advice not to sail from Crete. Then you would have spared yourselves this damage and loss. But now I urge you to keep up courage, because not one of you will lost. Only the ship will be destroyed." Can you imagine them looking at one another and saying, "What is this guy talking about?" So he says, "Last night an angel of God, whose I am and whom I serve, stood beside me and said, 'Do not be afraid, Paul. You must stand trial before Caesar, and God has graciously given you the lives of all who sail with you. So keep up your courage, men,' Paul says to them, 'for I have faith in God that it will happen just as was told me.'" And you know what? Sure enough, the ship wrecks and they're all saved, and Paul becomes the hero. Now, in the book of Acts, if the book of Acts was a movie, chapter 27 would be the climax. I don't know about you, but my favorite part of any movie is when the hero comes in and saves the day. It makes me wish that Acts had a soundtrack. We have certain music in our heads associated with this kind of a scene. In the Old West movies, it was the trumpet of the cavalry coming to save the day. In more modern times, it's the Star Wars theme or Indiana Jones music. I don't know what it might sound like, but it would build into a great climactic overture as the hurricane hits in full force and the waves crash on the hull and the crew is screaming and they're trying to keep the ship together and the captain is shouting orders and the tension mounts and all hope is gone. And then they crash. And the climax music, here comes the Apostle Paul, our great hero. I know, sometimes I have an overactive imagination, but for me, it helps the Bible come alive. The Bible's not just some dry history book. This is human drama at its most dramatic. Storms and shipwrecks and lives hanging in the balance. But you know what? The main reason I like this chapter, because it's not just about how God dealt with a bunch of guys on a ship 2,000 years ago. This is how God deals with us, you and me, right now, today. And like these people we read about, you've been on stormy seas, and I have too. And if you haven't been, you will. Don't worry. It'll come. The storms will come. The storms of life. We all have them. And like these men, your boat has been thrown around. You've been plunged into the eye of a storm. And if that hasn't happened yet, just wait. It's coming. Maybe it's a family disaster, a death, or disease or divorce. Maybe it's a financial storm. Maybe you lost your job or you've gotten heavily in debt. Maybe your tempest has come in the form of depression, whose gale force winds can rip down your sails and leave you dead in the water, feeling overwhelmed and underpowered. I don't know what it is or what it will be in your life, but I know this: storms will come. And the lesson of chapter 27, the book of Acts, is not primarily that God delivered 276 men on the Adriatic Sea 2,000 years ago. The lesson for you and for me is that God will deliver us from all the storms of life. Yes, there will be storms, but God has promised to always bring us through. So look to Him today and hang in there. He will fulfill His promise. Well, that's it for today. I hope that it's a blessing to you. That if you're going through a storm, I hope it really speaks to you. And if you're not, just tuck it away. Someday a storm will come, and maybe you can remember this great story and how God spoke to Paul and delivered him and the men that were with him. Well, that's it. Thank you so much for joining me for another heart-to-heart talk. And I encourage you to come and share in our services at the Alpha Assembly, 499 Grandview Pike in Clarion, Pennsylvania, just down from the Clarion campus of the university. And services 10:30 Sunday morning. And we would love to have you come and visit us. In the meantime, God bless you and have a great, great day. Bye-bye.